And I just had this randomly up, and I'm going to put this on Do Not Disturb. Stone Cold, and because we're doing this for Broadway Unplugged next week, and there's a postmodern jukebox version of this, originally by Demi Lovato. Yay. And it's got some nice chord progressions. So we can kind of look at sort of analyzing a few things. So Stone Cold, 3/4. Okay, so 3 crotchets per beat. I tend to be quite repetitive with this stuff because I think it's really important. It's just important to keep repeating, keep understanding what the hell is a time signature. The top number being how many, the bottom number being of what. So how many of what. The 4 being attributed to the quarter note, and a crotchet being a quarter note. Yes, multiple platform shenanigans. But you're not stuck. You do whatever you want. Okay? All right. Cool. So, one little thing, how do we check what key signature, key signature, we're in, is in a flat key, we check out the second last flat in the key signature. So I just like to do this because it's nice to just know what we're doing. So second last flat is an A flat, so we're in the key of A flat. And it's worth noting that the actual piece starts on the 4. So we're in the key of key of A flat. So 4 flats, A flat, B flat, D flat, E flat. Sorry, the visual keyboard's a little bit delayed. I'm probably overloading the computer, to be honest. And we're starting on the 4, okay, which can be quite interesting and unexpected. And this postmodern jukebox version, they actually replace a lot. They swap the minors and the majors in the F minor and the A flat major. So you'll see that the chord progression originally is D flat, so 4, F minor 6. D flat 4, and then A flat 1. So you see that in some ways it's a bit more interesting to do that originally because the melody is actually on the 3rd of each chord. So we start on the 3rd of the D flat, F, and then the A flat, the 3rd of the F minor, and then 3rd of the D flat, and then 3rd of the A flat. This is originally, though of course the postmodern jukebox version have swapped it around. So slightly less interesting, but also a little bit more gospel to move from the 4 to the 1. And then the F minor sounds, the F minor is just really a substitute for 1. So 6 is really just a substitute for the 1 chord. So when you find some 1 chords or 6 chords, even 2 chords sometimes, not always, you can substitute them for each other. Mainly because when we're looking at substitutions, we're just kind of looking at what is familiar notes or similar notes, and we're also looking at function. So for a chord to function as a tonic chord, it's kind of returning home. But do know that if it's functioning as a tonic chord, it doesn't have to be a tonic chord. It's also worth noting that the tonic chord is, the tonic is generally referring to the 1, okay? But the function to function as a tonic chord does not necessarily have to be 1. Generally speaking, it'll be 1 and 6 and 3. 3 can substitute 2. So as well. So in this key, we've got, it's important to know when you're going through each key, just to kind of cycle through each chord. So you can actually, each note in a scale has its own chord. So the note itself is referred to as a scale degree, and then the chord we build upon depends on the actual scale degrees within the scale itself. So A flat, C, E flat, the kind of easy way to do that is just to skip a note. You keep going. B flat minor, C minor, D flat major, E flat major, F minor, and G diminished, which ends up being quite relevant in a gospel context. By itself, it sounds a bit sort of boring. This is a B flat, sorry, this is a G flat minor 7 flat 5. So as soon as you add a 7th to the chord, it'll become a different chord, or it'll build upon what we've just come from. Okay. Now, meanwhile, I'm jumping in all sorts of different directions right now, and I'm pushing the difficulty a little bit just to see where people are at. Because if it starts to push too much, questions will help me guide me back. But I'm just throwing out a lot of information because that's how I like to roll. So A flat, we add the 7th. Now, the seventh in this context is referring to the seventh scale degree of A flat. But if you had to really work it out, you just skip the next note and then hit the next note after that. So then we've got the major 7, which is the G natural. So there's a formula here. There's an A flat major 7. You can look this up, or I can write it down or something. But A flat major 7. The next chord is a B flat minor 7. The next chord is a C minor 7. The next chord is a D flat major 7. The next one is an E flat dominant 7. The next one is an F minor 7. And the next one is sometimes called a half diminished, but in sort of jazz nomenclature, we'll refer to it as a G minor 7, flattened 5. And we did a bit of chords last week, but we didn't move into sevens. So it's worth noting that when you have a major 7 chord, it's the major chord itself, as well as the major 7 interval from the root note. Okay, so generally speaking, or not even generally, but actually speaking, this will be a semitone away from the root note. Okay, so in this context, it's a G natural, which is a semitone away from A flat. That's your major 7 interval. Those chords, this will become relevant soon because we'll probably do some reharmonization and try and make this piece a bit more interesting. Also, these chords are, you can just make something instantly more interesting by adding a 7th, and the 7th, if it's diatonic, which means of the key, so you're not sort of, pulling from too many other keys. It's just a very easy way to make something sound more colorful. Although eventually it'll start to sound really bland if you use a bunch of 7s, because the ear gets used to it and it's not really different. So the G natural here is the major 7 interval. And then we know it's a major 7 chord mainly because it's a 1, 3, 5, 7. That's not been altered. But if you want to look at it a bit deeper, the interval between 1 and 3 is a major 3rd, which makes it a major chord, which is 4 semitones. And the interval between C and E flat is a minor 3rd, which is 3 semitones. And then the interval between the 5th and the 7 is a major 3rd. So then you can look at it a different way. You can look at, okay, major 7 chord is actually a major 3rd, a minor 3rd, and a major 3rd. Or you can just know every key, and there's only 12 of them, so, I kind of prefer doing it that way. It's kind of like the major 7 chord is 1, 3, 5, 7. But that's relevant to any key. It doesn't matter what key the piece is in. If you want to play C major 7, you're going to play C, 3, 5, and 7 in the key of C. Yeah. So just shout out if there's any questions on that. The next chord in the series, and it's important to kind of know this as a series because you can apply it to any scale. Sometimes it's just nice if you're playing. It's nice to just practice the shapes and move between the shapes. The next one is a 2 minor 7. So it's based on the 2 scale degree of the chord of the key. Sorry. It's a minor chord because the distance between the 1 and the 3rd is a minor 3rd, so it's B flat to D flat, minor 3rd, and it's a minor chord because it's a major 3rd moving from the minor 3rd to the 5th. So basically, all you need to know is minor 3rd, major 3rd, so B flat to D flat, minor 3rd, D flat to F, major 3rd. But also, if we will look at it from a larger perspective, majors and minor chords will always have a perfect 5th in them, which is B flat to F, which is 7 semitones. Okay. So once you have the perfect 5th, the 3rd determines whether it's major or minor. So that's why it's important to have a strong grasp on what a perfect 5th is in any key, and to not be derailed by what the key is, to know that a perfect 5th is 7 semitones. So we got our minor 3rd interval, which is D flat, and then we've got our minor 7 interval, which is a flattened major 7 interval. Okay. So the major 7 is a natural A in the key of B flat, but the minor 7 interval is an A flat. So it's important to know that you only play a major 7 interval if the chord says major 7 or triangle 7 or MA 7. Most of the time in any other circumstance, minor 7 flat 5, just 7, which is actually a dominant 7, you flatten the 7 interval by a semitone. So instead of the 7 being a chromatic or a semitone away from the root note, it's going to be a tone away from the root note. So there's our minor 7 chord. 1, flat 3, 5, flat 7. So you can look at it like that. 1, flat 3, 5, flat 7. Now this will confuse some people because, the B flat is a flat note. So we go, why don't we flat the 1? on the piano it looks like that, but on any other instrument, the instrument's not really aware that it looks like this on the piano. So that's why we get a bit confused. Yes, it's a B flat, but this is all relative to the key that you're building in parallel to that note that you're working on. So for example, a -7 chord, irrelevant of what key I'm in, because I don't really know what key I'm in right now. I'm just looking at chords, sort of chords that are housed in the key of A flat major, but they have their own home bass as well. Okay, they have their own sort of continuity and note bass. So when I look at a B flat -7 chord, I'm looking at it as if I'm in B flat major, and then I'm altering the notes. So B flat major has 2 flats, B flat and E flat, but that's what it has innately and naturally. So you don't alter the one. This is a formula. So the 1 is always going to be just a 1. You rarely have a flattened 1 because that would be a different chord. It'd be a different home, a different root. So the -7 chord is 1, flat 3, 5, and flat 7. The third chord in a major scale series is also is also a -7 chord. Okay, so specifically to A flat major, it's a C -7, but in any other key, it's going to be a different chord. But this is what happens when we skip a note and play the next note, skip a note, play the next note, skip a note, play the next note. We get a -7 chord. This has become relevant when we start substituting chords. And then the fourth one is a major 7 again. Okay, so we've got the major 3rd, we've got the perfect 5th, we've got the major 7 interval from D flat to C. And then the next one is a unique chord to the key. You only have one dominant chord in a key. Naturally, you have the tonic and then you have the dominant, so there's one dominant, which is based on the 5th scale degree. So the dominant chord is a major chord with a -7 interval built on top of the root note. So you got the major chord, and then instead of playing a major 7, you're going to play a -7, which is a flattened 7 and a tone down from the root note. So there's your E flat dominant 7. Written on music, it would just be E flat 7. Sometimes you see the word dom, not always. Dominant chords naturally pull to a 5th below them. They have an inherent relationship that governs them or directs them, pulls them, navigates. You want to hear the movement back to the 1. So an interesting composition will not just move you back to the 1 because that's what the listener expects, unless you want to do what they expect, in which case that's fine. But if you had a whole song of 1 5 1 5 1 5 1 5, it would be tedious and boring and not go anywhere. So there's our E flat 7. Next chord is a -7 again, F -7. And then the next chord, a little bit unique. Again, we call it a -7 flat 5 in kind of traditional jazz speak. Some people call it half diminished. I prefer it -7 flat 5 because it's got the -7 interval. And then in the key of G, the 5 is a D, and we're actually flattening 5. So really the minor in the -7 flat 5 is referring to the tonality of the actual chord. Tonality means whether it's major or minor, by the way, which is synonymous with what is the 3rd doing. Is the 3rd naturalized or is it flattened? But again, it's just a cheat way of knowing that it is a -7. So it's a -7 flat 5. So G minor is naturally, sorry, I shouldn't say naturally, is a G minor is G, B flat D. -7, okay, again, when we see that, -7 is a tone down from G. So it's a flattened major 7. And then it's a flat 5. So you see the 5 there, which is 1 3 5 7, and then I flatten the 5. So, any questions so far? No? All right. So you can actually, this is one of the nicest ways to learn chords, rather than just learning them 12 major 7 chords or 12 -7 chords. It's nice to be like, what key am I working in? And then can I work out the chords in this key? And you can actually draw this out. It's quite easy to draw out because if you're on a piece of manuscript, all you have to do is skip a line, skip a line, skip a line, and skip a space. So yeah, A flat, major 7, B flat -7, C minor 7, D flat major 7, E flat 7, F -7, G -7 flat 5. Now we can look at this piece a little bit more, and what I usually like to do when I'm analyzing a piece is draw the Roman numerals, which refers to the scale degrees as well as the chords themselves. So 5. Oh, yeah, we screw up 6 and 4. And then I'm just getting a basic idea, and then eventually moves to the 5. But the 5 is not really functioning as a dominant here. The 5 is actually functioning as a tonic chord, like a home bass. There's no 7 in it. So our ears kind of want to hear it natural. Like we do want to hear it move back to the 1, but then it actually doesn't move back to the 1. It moves back to the 4. So it's just functioning a little bit differently than a traditional dominant 7. So it's important to note that each scale degree has a name as well. We won't go into that in immense detail, but the basic to know is the 1 scale degree is also referred to the tonic. That's the note itself. But a chord can be a tonic chord, and it can also function as a tonic chord. So there's kind of all these different kind of things that imply home bass. The root note is not always the tonic, because as we get into inversions, the root note will change. And the dominant chord, or rather, sorry, the 5th scale degree in a scale. Thanks for the follow, Elijah. Yay, you popped on Twitch. That's great. I love that little ding. Anyway, you probably can't hear that, Jack. See, I'm just going nuts. So the 5 chord. Sorry, brain. The 5th scale degree is referred to as the dominant scale degree. Okay. So, and this is probably, most people can think back to high school as well, because you would have done this a lot, I reckon, in music theory, and a lot of the time doesn't really make sense. But, and just to give you a bit of a clue what we're talking about, the 3rd scale degree is referred to as the mediant. And I believe the 2nd scale degree is submediant, the 4th is subdominant. And then 6 and 7, which I always forget, to be honest. I think the 7 is subtonic, but don't quote me on that. 6 actually could be submediant, but again, just Google it, you know. So the 5th scale degree is the dominant, and a 5 chord is a dominant chord, and then a chord can be functioning as a dominant. So sometimes the 7 chord can function as a dominant, because when I look at the 7 chord, there's actually a lot of notes in there that are within the 7, that are within the dominant chord. Okay, so there's traditionally, if I was looking at this, if it was an E flat 7 chord, there's a 3. There's a 5, there's a flat 7, and then technically there's a 9. So sometimes in order to prolong the dominant, because sometimes that's what we're looking to do as composers or reharmonization people, we're looking at making the dominant more interesting to generate more tension and to pull apart the idea, so we're delaying that relief, as mind-altering emotional creatures who want to create a very exciting artistic experience, maybe, I don't know. So, so we can have the minor 7 flat 5, which is functioning as a dominant, and then we can alter the bass note. Okay, so it's not changing much, but sometimes all you need to do is move the bass note. So the bass player will actually just play something different, whilst the chord above, or rather the middle chord, which is usually sort of, if I can play all of that, because I can't show you on the piano, the middle harmony is functioning the same, because then, we're not even getting into like top stuff where like strings can do lots of weird stuff. If you start to pair that in an orchestration sense, things can get quite wild and very exciting. But yeah, as I said, the bass note can change. So 7, 5, 1. An easy way to prolong any chord is to just move to its inversion anyway. So 7 on the B flat, E flat, and A flat. Now, the 7 chord, as soon as you move it onto the B flat, it becomes a B flat minor 6, which is a really cool chord. Very, very, very cool chord. Very, very cool chord. Which is really just an inverted minor 7. But as you invert minor 7 flat 5s and diminished chords, they're symmetrical chords generally, so you'll wind up with something else. So it's worth noting that you can actually generate quite an interesting chord progression when you move between the 1 and the 2. Instead of going major 7 1 and then minor 7 2, this is traditional, right? that's a very basic kind of musical theatre kind of cabaret thing. You can actually go major 7-1. So that's me actually kind of doing more of a -7 flat, a -6 chord on the B flat, which I haven't really delved into how to construct a -6, but basically it's a minor chord with the 6th scale degree. The 6th scale degree derives from the major scale, not the minor chord, not the minor scale. Okay, this is really important because that's the -6, and at this point, this is just a major 7 in an inversion. It's really not that interesting. The -6 scale degree, or rather the 6th scale degree in a -6 chord, derives from the major chord, major scale, sorry. And then the scale that is implied there is the B flat Dorian scale, which is the 2nd scale degree of A flat. So that's just a really basic way to kind of explore some improvisation. You know, all I'm using is the A flat major scale, but I'm making the 2 chord a little bit more interesting. And you'll notice that I just moved from the 2 chord -6 to the E flat and then to the A flat, which really that 2 chord is just an expression of what I was doing before with the G -7 flat 5. And then we start to get, and I'm just throwing stuff here, so we start to work out how do we actually alter melodies, moving melodies throughout the chordal progression, you know? So for example, I'll go, so they've got this B natural, which if you had to look at the harmony of that B natural in the E flat chord, it's becoming a sharp 5. But it's so inconsequential because it's just moving, it's about to move, it's actually just prolonging a chordal tone. A chordal tone being any note that belongs to that chord. So. Yeah. So it can be really interesting if there's a few components, but it can be really interesting if melodically speaking, you actually move to a neighboring tone that's not within the chord itself or not within a chordal tone. And if you actually do it on a strong beat, it can be super great. So for example, this is A flat chord on a -7 flat 5, 7th scale degree. You know, there's quite ragtime to be honest. So we've got the A flat there, quite dissonant, right? On the strong beat. To the E flat. So what I'm doing there is actually favoring the melody. I don't really care what the chords are doing. If you want to. So we'll go for another couple of minutes, and I might just play you a little bit of this if I was to sort of reinterpret things a little bit. So I'm going to play more through the chord progression and maybe disregard the song a little bit. And I'm going to go on a 2-page spread and probably kill my eyes. But that's okay, it's all for the art. Play a bit more with the rhythm. Play with the bass. And then this magical chord. Which I'll just leave it on that note, pardon the pun, or do not. So the last chord I'll leave you with is the minor 4 chord, super gospel, and super can be overused. quite easily. People go, oh yeah, it's cool, and then they go, yeah, I'll just shove -7, a -4 in there all the time. You'll see it in a lot of Disney stuff. It's there, it's sort of sprinkled, but you kind of got to go hunting for it a little bit. But yeah, this is the D flat -7. So you could do an easy piece just on -4. And just those, who want to just geek out a little bit, the specific voicing I'm doing is a minor third, fifth, 6, and 9. That's a traditional minor 9 voicing. Okay, which a 9 is a exploration of the 7, which can be an exploration of the actual minor chord that we're doing. All right, friends. Shall we leave it there? All right, Jack. Do you have any questions before we head off? Too easy for you?
I do, but I feel like it might go into another topic, so I feel like I should just ask it another.
Yeah. What is it?
Voice leading.
Ah, yeah, voice leading.
And whether you should, I don't know if this is a silly question, but whether you should be prioritizing. If your voice leading takes you out of the key temporarily, should you be prioritizing sounds that are diatonic most of the time? Or if the voice leading is particularly smooth, is it okay to go to a completely different key center?
Yeah, right. I guess that's probably a shitty answer. The short answer is obviously you can do what you want. I always like to prioritize melody. So I'm superimposing a melody that is highly not diatonic, but I'm still using the chordal movement. Of course, when you're actually accompanying someone, we can talk about that a little bit more. But again, I'm sort of thinking about what are the strings doing in this context, and where are we moving. I actually do think of it in a choral or a string kind of context. I would say though, think more about the actual rhythmic component before you do the note component. Because an interesting rhythm will sell for much more than a stodgy note or a diatonic note. Because you can still play a very mundane, run-of-the-mill, this is diatonic, obviously. But then if I just pull from something else, pull from a different key, because I haven't moved yet, it's not going to make a lot of sense. So it's not in a jazz context. That's actually quite Sondheim, to be honest. And I get the resolve eventually, but I'm using notes that are actually derived more from the minor parallel of A flat. But again, I'm using that as a vibe or as an idea. Anyway, it's not a direct question. Sorry, it's not a direct answer, to be honest. But we'll try delve into it into future classes for sure. Yeah. And I'll try find some little moments where I actually play something, and sometimes it's a bit nicer to sort of see me play something and be like, what did you do there? Or can you sort of explain that a little bit more? And maybe we'll get into some arranging, some logic stuff. Thanks for joining today, by the way. Really great. All right. I will be back next week, and until then, you stay well, healthy, safe, and all the rest. And feel free to shoot me questions, by the way. Yeah. Are you part of the Facebook group?
I think I just joined. I'm not sure.
Yeah, cool. All right. I'll keep an eye on that. And I'd love to.